In conclusion, after a careful reading of the pertinent passages of the city's code as it pertains to historic landmarks and historic districts, I believe that the three buildings bearing the addresses 83 through 93 Southwest 8th Street should not be awarded historic designation by this Historic Preservation Board.
I've never opposed a designation before, but when I was asked, I took a look at this designation and believe that this particular designation is counterproductive in nature. In this particular instance, we're talking about 3 isolated buildings along this corridor that are backed up to a large open lot. And so the context for understanding the significance of these buildings is lacking. I also find that there are scholarship issues here. No architect in particular has been identified, and I find that to be particularly problematic because without the architect, it is additionally difficult to establish the context of this building. Knowing the architect would help us place this building within that architect's work. I would venture to guess that perhaps there was no architect. The building could have been built by a builder. It's hard to tell. Finally, I would make an urban argument, meaning that the rest of this site, the rest of this block is open. It's a grassy lot. And a new building is going to go here. And the rest of this neighborhood is in mid-redevelopment. And there's a new scale in this area. It's a scale that responds to urban lifestyle, of density, with access to the metro rail. And I think if this building were preserved, I'm not so sure it would be a good planning decision.
If you look at what the building is today, it is not a historically significant building. The building is older than 50 years and it does still exist. It is a very good building. It is a perfectly fine building in terms of being solid. It's well maintained. It has a business there that is obviously well patronized, well loved by the community, but those are not factors that go into whether the structure is an historic structure under the criteria of your code. What remains here is a shard. It is a fragment that is divorced from any context that will be difficult, if almost impossible, to be integrated into any likely neighborhood development pattern in this area.
I disagree that the existing building is a shard of what it was. I think it has retained significantly its character.
I think it would be very nice to preserve this building because it's surrounded by high-riser and by this massive development. And I don't care if it's not Frank Lloyd Wright or Le Corbusier that designed the building. It's a piece of history from the 20s. It's a piece of Miami, okay? We can reconstruct exactly the way it was. There's no doubt of that. But it would be nice to keep a piece of old Miami in the new Miami. That's it.
Okay, thank you. As I sit and I listen to the applicant and then listen to other members that oppose this particular project, as a historian myself, I'm sitting here appalled in a sense of hearing someone tell me that this building is not historic or it doesn't merit any historic designation. You know, I applaud you because any citizen can initiate a designation report. Any citizen, whether he's a tenant or not, anyone, I can ride by a building and say, I think it merits some historic designation and submit the application. And my question is, does this building merit the effort to be saved and restored? You know, if we don't save it, what is left behind? If we destroy this building, based on even looking at the photo that is up now, look at what's going up around it. What stories do we tell our children about Miami if a lot of the buildings that we see as old and unoccupied, we destroy? We're losing our identity daily here in Miami. There's a lot of buildings in Overtown, we don't know who the architect is. And a lot of those people that build the Masons in Overtown came over the track to build a lot of the buildings in Miami. So, of course, you may not find who those black builders were. We may never know. There's a story that can be told when you see the one-level building and then you see the high-rises. This is what was, incorporating those things. History is always sometimes his story. You know, that's the people that are left behind. The Dorsey House was an abandoned shack. So because it was old and decrepit and old, should we have left it an abandoned shack? Identification is important, and you know, I just can't believe my ears when we say that. I mean, I know there's some technical aspects as to what is historic, but this building tells a story to me. It looked like the Kola Nip to me, honestly. It looks like the Kola Nip to me. So there's a possibility that maybe if we do more diligent research, we may find some information that we're overlooking. But I don't think we should just write it off. I don't think we should just write it off and say, he's just trying to save the building because he's a tenant. No, when I saw the building, I said initially it has that effect. But just to write off history, I'm appalled at that. Very appalled at it. So that's my comments, and I'm done.
My argument is that it's really the DNA. It's not, you know, a vital, vibrant, richly significant structure, but it's a piece of the DNA of this part of the city in the 1930s. It's kind of the welcoming sign, if you will, to that district that's back up towards South Miami Avenue and back to the river. And a lot of those kind of structures up in that direction towards the river really predominated. So it's kind of almost an entry feature to a district which is very much now changed, and a lot of those structures are no longer there. So to me, it does sort of welcome that district of memory, if you will. I appreciate that our staff looked carefully at criteria number 4 and criteria number 5 and felt these structures merited designation under number 4 and number 5. You guys had some good arguments against other criteria which were not listed.
I think these two buildings are just altered buildings that happen to be old. I don't see something very special about their architecture. I don't see it in the context. I just see two old buildings that, of course, I'd like to save. Like maybe policy reasons for wanting to maintain them and not have overkill in development. I don't see why you can't restore them or have them put into a new building, but I got to strictly try and apply these two standards. And I don't put any, you know, your motivations, I really don't care. So it's nothing to do with motivations, but respectfully disagree.
Okay, this is a vote in favor of the designation of these buildings. Mr. Appel?
No.
Mr. Barber?
Yes.
Dr. Broughton?
Yes.
Mr. Grafton?
Yes?
Dr. Hopper?
Yes.
Ms. Lorenzo?
Yes.
Mr. Zemanillo?
Yes.
The vote carries 6-1.